Next, we'll hear from two women. One received a kidney donation from the other. They wrote an article about it this week in USA Today. It's 1 hour.
You two women that you know from this network, appearances many times on your screen. One of them this morning is in Los Angeles, the one on the right. Good morning to our guest, Virginia Postrel, and on the left, Sally Sattel, who is in Denver. We're going to start right off, Sally Sattel. Start telling the story about what we learned in the USA Today on Wednesday. What's going on?
Well, that was a story about my receiving a kidney from Virginia Postrel. I had, to my surprise, developed kidney failure in 2004. I thought I was healthy. I went to the doctor for a routine checkup, and turned out that my renal function was very poor, and I was told that within a few months to a year or so that I would need a kidney transplant. And so it became quite a challenge because I wanted to find a living donor. Certainly one can get on the national list for a cadaver donor, that is a donor that an organ that comes from a deceased individual. And but unfortunately, that wait is so long. There are 68,000 people now waiting, and it can take 5 to 8 years in big cities for you to get to the top of the list. And you're on dialysis during that time. And I probably would have survived, but a lot of people sometimes don't make it. In fact, 11 people a day die on this list. So if I could get a kidney from a friend, then I could avoid dialysis and not wait on this list for so many years. And so I didn't have eligible family, and some friends had said they'd look into it, but in the end they fell through. I actually even went on a internet website called MatchingDonors.com, which is actually a very, very useful kind of service. It's private, but anyone can join. It's essentially it matches up people who need organs with those anonymous donors, very, very generous people who are willing to give a kidney or part of a liver. And I did that, and I thought I met someone, and fortunately he fell through. And then, thank goodness, about a year ago, next week, in fact, I think a friend mentioned to Virginia, who lives in a different city, someone who I'd always admired as a wonderful journalist and a fine person, but I actually hadn't known all that well, and but mentioned to Virginia that I was sick and needed a kidney. And a week later, Virginia sent me an email that said in the subject line, "Serious offer," and very much so. And then we took it from there. And in March of March of 2006, about 7 months ago, we had the surgery.
Virginia Postrel, why?
Why? Well, there's sort of two reasons. One was I had a very empathetic reaction when Christina Hoff Sommers, who's probably been on your network as well, Sally's co-author and our mutual friend, told me that Sally needed a kidney. I just immediately pictured how desperate her situation might be. As she said, she didn't have the usual family network that people turn to, and I knew that. And Sally is a very active person whose life would pretty much would be saved, but also be ruined by being tied up to a dialysis machine 3 days a week. And as she mentioned, people don't necessarily survive on that. And I just had this feeling of, oh my God, she must be in a complete panic over this prospect. And I thought, this is something that I could do. I like Sally, don't have any children who are dependent on me being around, and I'm very healthy, and I'm always, I sort of spent my career trying to save the world, and it's very hard to save the world, but you can save one person by being a kidney donor. And I thought, well, somebody needs to do this, and let me see. And at the time, I also, one thing that a lot of people don't know, and that I didn't really know at the time, is that nowadays all you need to donate a kidney is a compatible blood type. That's the primary thing. The days of where it had to be a really close relative, preferably an identical twin, those days are over. The immunosuppressant drugs take care of a lot of those kind of compatibility issues. So I originally thought that I actually had type O blood, which is the universal donor. That was incorrect. I went as the easiest way to get your blood type is to give blood. So I went to local blood bank and signed up to give blood, which actually wasn't that easy because I was slightly anemic, so I had to kind of eat total cereal for a week and get my iron count up. And then I gave blood, and I found out that I was, in fact, A positive. So then I thought, oh, my, what if that's not the right blood type? But, in fact, that was Sally's type, and we proceeded from there. It's a process where they make it extremely easy to back out and very difficult to sort of continue and be a donor. It may be different for people who are close family members, but what I found was that you sort of have to be, kind of really bullheaded, which I am, and continually going through the various hurdles, part of which, because I don't live in Washington, D.C., where Sally lives, I live in Dallas, involved arranging for various medical tests and making sure that they tested my blood type 1 million times. My blood was tested for hepatitis C and HIV and various other kinds of infections. I had to have an MRI, there are a lot of different tests you have to make sure that you are healthy enough to give a kidney, and also that it won't have a bad deleterious effect on your health long term, and also that you really are truly compatible and somebody hasn't made a lab error or something.
Sally Sattel, quickly, if you don't mind, give us the kind of the basics. When was the operation? Where was the operation? When was the kidney taken out of Virginia and then given to you? And what kind of shape are you in today?
Oh, I think I'm in great shape, and in fact, I was back at work in 5 weeks. But the surgery was March 4th, and we had it at the Washington Hospital Center. And the surgeons and the staff and the transplant coordinator, who is a key player here, someone who coordinates Virginia and the logistics and gets all the blood tests together, and just from a moral support standpoint, very helpful woman. She was wonderful. And we had the surgery that day. It was on a Saturday. I know Virginia was out for the hospital in 3 days and giving a speech 19 days later. And I was out a week later. And, a month of recuperation. And as I said, I was back to work at the American Enterprise Institute in 5 weeks. And it really... even if it was really tough, it would have been worth it, certainly, because it's just an amazing offer on her part, and she's changed my life. But as far as medical stress and surgical psychological trauma, it was minimal to me.